Let's say you've just gotten out of prison after years behind bars. Experienced fighter and former Marine Isaiah Bone returns to Los Angeles with no other goals but to start a new life and avenge the death of his friend. The city greets him not with new opportunities, but with underground fights where only the strongest survive. But for Bones, it's not just a way to make money, it's his path to justice. With every step, every punch, he becomes more and more immersed in a world where violence is the only way to show what you can do. Unlike many here who are only looking for a quick buck, for Bones, fighting isn't just about making money. It's a way to get back what was stolen from him, his honor, his justice. His lost years. Los Angeles, with its dirty streets and dark corners, is full of obscurantism and brutality. Bone realizes that even if he is victorious in every fight, it will not give him true satisfaction. He encounters this world not as simply an environment for making money, but as a reflection of his inner struggle. The struggle to be the best not only in battle, but in life. Bone realizes that winning in the arena is only the beginning. It's more important for him to expose those who run this underground world. One day, after he defeats yet another opponent, fate leads him to James, a powerful mob boss who hides behind this brutal fighting system. James not only rules the city, but also manipulates people by playing them to his side. However, when Bone meets James, he realizes that he is more than just a fighter in this game. James is a much more complex and dangerous figure than first thought. Bone quickly realizes that it's not just his opponents in the ring that stand in his way, but also shadows from the past connected to James. Here in this dark world, it takes more than just physical strength to win. It takes realizing who is your true enemy and who is your ally. Everything changes when Bone learns of the tragic fate of Angela, James's girlfriend, and her torment over her past. With each step, he delves deeper into the personal dramas that become part of his own revenge. The struggle for justice and redemption is not just limited to fighting in the arena. Now he is ready to fight for the lives that have been ruined by James and for his own. In the course of his arena fight, Bone is drawn deeper and deeper into the atmosphere of Los Angeles, which, despite its bright and dynamic exterior, hides an abyss of cruelty and pain. In this city, he not only gains a reputation as an unbeatable fighter, but also begins to establish ties with those who, like him, strive to survive in the brutal streets and darkness of the underworld. One such person is Tamara, the landlady of the apartment building where Bone rents an apartment. Tamara is a woman with a firm character, running the house with authority, but not devoid of warmth and sympathy for those who, like her, found themselves on the margins of life. Her kindness and concern for people like Bone, Roberto, and Jared makes him feel that despite all the horror around him, there is room for humanity. She not only helps Bone, but becomes his moral support, giving him a new perspective on things. Their companionship, while not going beyond everyday concerns, becomes something more for Bone. He begins to realize that there are people in this world who not only need help, but can become real friends to him. Together with Roberto, with whom Bone often plays chess, and Jared, a boy who has suffered the tragedy of losing his father, Bone begins to realize that life in this apartment building is not so hopeless. A true friendship develops in their relationship, which becomes a source of strength and inspiration for him in a world where every new day is a struggle. Tamara plays an important role in Bone's life, being not only a physical support but also a moral guide. In her home, he finds refuge from the cruelty of the outside world and realizes that for true revenge, in order to win this struggle, it is important not only to kill his enemies, but also to protect those who truly need protection. Assume that your fighting experience is not just a path to fame and money, but a key to unlocking the dark secrets hidden beneath the surface of a life filled with cruelty and betrayal. As Bone begins to defeat his opponents, his name becomes known, and his victories attract the attention of not only the audience, but also those who run this world. He soon encounters James, a mysterious and dangerous mob boss whose power encompasses not only Los Angeles, but also the underground fighting arenas where money and life line up. James is a man whose actions and manipulations are difficult to understand, but one thing is clear: he's not afraid to use other people to achieve his goals. Meeting him leaves no room for illusions. James tells Bone about his relationship with a woman, Angela Soto, and how she became a victim of his cruel machinations. With each new revelation, it becomes clear that Angela's story is not just a personal tragedy, but part of a larger circle of criminal intrigue, all mixed up in lies, manipulation, and sacrifice. When Bone discovers that James framed her husband Danny, accusing him of a triple murder and sent him to prison, it becomes a defining moment for him. But even worse, James didn't stop there. After learning that Angela was pregnant, he forced her to have an abortion, and since then her life has gone downhill, plunging into a world of drugs and self-destruction. For Bone, this information becomes not only a personal shock, but also a challenge. He decides that he cannot remain indifferent to Angela's fate. This is not just a battle to save her, it is a battle to restore justice and revenge, to rebuild what was destroyed by James's cruel hands. To win this battle, however, Bone realizes that he will have to face an enemy far more dangerous than he could have imagined. Within days of defeating his first opponent, Bone's reputation in the underground arena grew significantly. He was not just a fighter, but a true phenomenon, with each fight confirming his invincibility and building his fame. With each successful fight, he attracted more and more attention, not only from the audience, but also from the high-profile players behind the scenes of this brutal business. Pinball, his promoter, was becoming more and more interested in his potential as the money they were starting to make became more and more impressive. But it was all just part of a more complex and dangerous game that Bone found himself drawn into. One of those who watched this development was James, a charismatic and brutal mob boss whose connections extended not only to the dark corners of Los Angeles, but also internationally. He was the man who could control people, manipulate their fates, playing on their weaknesses and desires. He had already managed to squeeze into Bone's life several times, making him feel the heaviness and callousness of the world around him. But this time it wasn't so simple. James, noticing how quickly Bone is rising in the underground fighting arenas, decides to offer him something more than just participating in local matches. He introduces Bone to a much bigger and more dangerous world, an international fighting league featuring the best and most brutal fighters from around the world. The league, known as the Consortium, brought together the elite of this violent world, men with vast amounts of money and influence who capitalized on blood and violence. And it was in this league that James wanted Bone, offering him a fight with handsome price, the reigning champion of this arena. It was not just an opportunity for Bone to make even more money, but a chance to prove his strength, to become a true legend. In the meantime, Bone begins to get close to people who begin to mean more to him than just casual acquaintances. He finds support and understanding in the apartment building where he lives. Tamara, the building's landlady, with whom he shares an apartment, turns out to be a person capable of more than just a business relationship. She becomes for him not just the woman who manages his apartment, but a person whose kindness and concern for others causes him to consider his own future. Roberto, an older Latino man with whom he plays chess, helps him not only to fight in the ring, but also to find the inner peace that is so necessary in a world full of violence and victims. Jared, a boy whom Tamara adopted after his father was sent to prison, becomes for Bone a symbol of innocence and hope for a bright future, despite all the horrors of the world around him. It is during this period that Bone learns more about James's past and his connection to Angela Soto, the woman James used and abandoned. He hears about the horrible things James has done to manipulate Angela's life and decides that he cannot remain unconcerned about her fate. With each new piece of information, each new discovery, Bone begins to realize that his fight is more than just a battle with his rivals in the arena. It's a war against the system, against people who don't value life and aren't afraid to destroy destinies for their own gain. When Bone learns that James framed Angela's husband, Danny, by accusing him of a triple murder and sending him to prison, he decides he must do everything he can to find the truth and help Angela. But what's even more horrifying is that James forced her to have an abortion after he found out she was pregnant. This has become the final straw for Bone. He decides he must stop James, no matter what it costs him. Gradually, with each new fight and each new victory, Bone becomes more and more determined. He realizes that the world he has fallen into is far more cruel and dangerous than he ever imagined. But that cruelty has become his only ally. It's not just a fight for survival, it's a fight for truth and justice, even if that justice will be gained through blood and pain. Then, when Bone decides to offer a deal to James and fight Handsome Price, he already realizes that this fight isn't just an opportunity to make money or become a champion. It's his chance to destroy James and avenge everything he's done. But to do that, he not only needs to defeat Price, but also to deal with the web of intrigue, lies, and violence in which he finds himself. When Bone decides to fight Handsome Price, his motivation goes beyond simply wanting to win in the ring. This fight is more than a physical confrontation. It's a fight for justice, for those who have suffered at the hands of James. Bone doesn't just want revenge, he seeks to put an end to the cruelty this man spreads. Throughout his preparation, Bone is immersed in reflections on his past and the people he has met in Los Angeles. Tamara, the landlady of his apartment, has become like family to him. Her kindness and care became his support in this chaotic and violent city. Roberto, the old Hispanic man who taught him to play chess, was not just a friend to Bone, but a man who is not afraid to speak openly about life's difficult truths. Even little Jared, the boy Tamara adopted, became for him a symbol of what was worth fighting for. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, preparations for the big fight begin. James, who was behind this brutal world of underground fighting, continues to manipulate people, to control their destinies. He decides to put everything on the line by forcing Bone to fight the current champion, Handsome Price. James believes that Bone has no choice, but without knowing it, he has underestimated Bone's willpower. Bone, realizing that a fight with Price is not only a way to make money but also a chance to finally destroy James's influence, decides to use the fight as a weapon. He does everything he can to not only win in the ring, but to expose James to the world. At one point, he records James' confession, which serves as proof of his crimes, and gives it to Pinball to send it to the hands of justice. This step becomes crucial, not only for Bone, but for everyone who has suffered at the hands of James. At the moment of the decisive fight, when Bone is ready to defeat Price, James finds himself even more trapped than he could have imagined. Bone, despite the tension and brutal blows, decides that his real goal is not just to win the fight, but to secure a future for those in need. In the end, winning in the ring doesn't bring Bone joy, but it does give him a sense of accomplishment. He destroys James's empire, and his friends, Tamara, Angela, Jared, and Pinball, can now start a new life free of fear and violence.